you kindly? Would you kindly get this? Would you kindly find that? Would you kindly find that? Would you kindly find? Would you kindly get this?
Let me tell you, I really don't give Nintendo fanboys a lot of credit, but I have to give them props on this one. No other fan base goes as far as to spread lies, propaganda, and misinformation about gaming history. These guys have literally attempted to get into a time machine, go back in time, and rewrite history because they really can't accept the truth that is the reality of today. So we have this guy, a grown-ass man who plays with doll babies, who's trying to attempt to persuade people and spread his propaganda claiming that there is anti-Nintendo bias from third parties against the GameCube and against Nintendo. Now, if this was a situation that happened, last week, last month, last year, maybe there'll be some, creed and credibility to what he's trying to say, but this is the GameCube, people. 2001, 2002, it's over a decade ago. All of this crap has already been recorded in the annals of history. There's no room for debate. It is all written there. It is a fact. So today we're going to be referencing A Dolphin's Tale, the story of the GameCube, written once again by the beautiful Emily Rogers, that lady that a lot of these Nintendo stalwarts really dislike because she tells it how it is. She comes out with the proper research, the cited sources and reference material, and Nintendo fanboys, they really don't like facts when it comes to you talking about their company of choice. So let's get into this article and go through some of the highlighted portions of what I've had to bring to you over the topics of Nintendo third-party support and that of the GameCube. At GDC 2000, most software houses were already well in production with the PlayStation 2 and Xbox titles, but very few developers had signed up to create games for Nintendo's Dolphin. Dolphin was the butt of jokes at Games Developers Conference. A developer told IGN, "We'll develop for Dolphin in 5 years when Nintendo finally releases some information on it." Another developer said, "Nintendo is making the same old mistakes, it's not giving us any incentive to bother with the Dolphin." So if you don't know what the GDC is, it's a Game Developers Conference. If you don't know what the Dolphin is, that was a code name for the GameCube. And already we can see that developers were making strides to develop games for the PlayStation 2 and the Xbox, but Nintendo once again was lagging and lacking behind with the Nintendo GameCube. At the very same event, Bill Gates called for mass developer support to drive the Xbox, and Microsoft was aggressively pursuing third-party developers by delivering development kits to as many studios as possible. Dolphin developers could prepare for Nintendo's future system by creating prototypes on the highest performance PC available. So let's recap this real quick. Developers have PlayStation 2 and Xbox dev kits ready. Bill Gates is actively pushing for developer kits to mass developer support to drive the Xbox, being aggressive. And what is Nintendo doing? Once again, being lackadaisy, sitting on their ass. By June 2000, no US companies had working GameCube development kits yet, and were still in prototype stages. We're still dealing with simulation and emulation. In the interim, we're working with incomplete setups. So here we are, June 2000. Nobody in America has working GameCube development kits, and yet we see people with working PlayStation 2 development kits. We see Microsoft and Bill Gates aggressively handing out development kits to aggressively pursue third-party developers. In December 2000 issue of Next Gen magazine, approximately 7 months after the GDC, Hiroshi Yamauchi said they are not approaching third parties to make games for the GameCube. I repeat, they are not approaching third parties to make games for the GameCube. Instead, they expect third parties to come to them once the GameCube starts to grow. So let me get this straight. Microsoft, the newcomer to the industry, is aggressively pursuing third-party developers and aggressively handing out development kits, and yet Here we have Nintendo saying they are not approaching third-party developers at all. They just magically expect them to make games for them. One company aggressively pursuing them, and Nintendo saying, meh, they'll come to us. On August 2001, Peter Main echoed Kaplan's comments. Our focus is not on maximizing the number of developers on the system. I repeat, our focus is not on maximizing the number of developers on this system. We're absolutely convinced we've got top quality developers around the world working on this project. Nintendo's Satoru Iwata, oh god, you know about this guy, a long belief by Hiroshi Yamauchi, butchered that name, that Nintendo does not believe in overwhelming third-party support. I repeat, Iwata claimed that Nintendo does not believe in overwhelming third-party support. So you have the American guys saying their focus is not on maximizing the number of developers, and you have the Japanese contingent of Nintendo saying they do not believe in maximizing overwhelming third-party support. CNN reported that Nintendo is charging a much higher licensing fee for the GameCube at $11, while Microsoft and Sony were charging in between $7 and $9. One major publisher even admitted to IGN that Microsoft had been very accommodated when it came to the licensing fees. Nintendo's top marketing executive went on to say how they deal with Microsoft and Sony being the same companies. He basically just shrugged it off. On top of GameCube's higher licensing fees, the shortages and delays of GameCube development kits would also push away developers from making games for the GameCube. Jim Merrick said, "We are now and will be in a shortage condition for development kits for a long time to come, and we're not going to be able to satisfy demand for development kits until probably 6 months after GameCube launches. We'll still be in a shortage of development kits." You heard me right, people. Up until a half a year after the launch of the GameCube, they will be in a shortage of development kits. Meanwhile, we have Microsoft aggressively pursuing any and all third-party developers, knocking down their door, handing them aggressively development kits. In 2001, many developers still hadn't received their kits, and this caused rumors to spread around the industry that the GameCube might not even launch that year. Even though it did, but the fact that rumors were going around that the GameCube might not launch doesn't really bode well. I've been told that Sony won over Nintendo by surrounding itself with software companies. However, times have changed, and it's no longer a race to see how many useless companies you can get on your side. Yamauchi. That is the old, bold head start of Nintendo. The old president before Iwata. He is right here saying and proclaiming, it is no longer a race to see how many useless companies you can get on your side. Directly stating that he believes that third-party developers are useless. On February 7th, 2011, former Nintendo president Yamauchi again strongly criticized the industry for creating one game and then porting it to all 3 consoles. Later in May 16th, 2001, the week of GameCube's debut, Iwata, his puppet, criticized third-party publishers for porting AAA blockbuster titles to multiple consoles. So here we have Iwata and his predecessor both criticizing third-party developers. And yet people tend to wonder why Nintendo has a problem gaining third-party developers, or why Nintendo had a problem getting them on the GameCube. Well, I don't feel the slightest threat from the PlayStation 2, and very frankly speaking, I am not too concerned about the existence of the PlayStation 2 at all. I'm not too concerned about the PlayStation 2, said Shigeru Miyamoto. Now, Miyamoto is one of the best developers of all time, and has created some of the best gaming franchises of all time. But to say that he doesn't feel the slightest threat from the PlayStation 2, and that he is not too concerned about the PlayStation 2, is blasphemy, stupidity, and utter ignorance, plain and simple. So, let's recap this entire article and the stupidity that is Nintendo, and blowing the myth out of the water that there was a bias against the Nintendo GameCube, and that is why the Nintendo GameCube didn't see third-party support. Nintendo delayed development kits. Nintendo did not have a urgency to gain third-party support. They did not approach third parties to make GameCube games like PlayStation and Xbox. They had expectations for third parties to come to them rather than them pursuing third parties. They had no intention to maximize developers on the system, they had a non-belief in overwhelming third-party support, and they charged a higher licensing fee than the competition of Microsoft and Sony. There were a shortage of development kits. The shortage lasted a half a year after the launch of their machine. They had Yamauchi calling third-party developers useless companies, and they criticized third parties for porting AAA games to multiple consoles. All in all, they actually also felt that the PlayStation 2 wasn't a threat. And yet here we are, people on YouTube, Nintendo fanboys, crying and complaining, making the bold and blasphemous statement that there was an anti-Nintendo GameCube sentiment from third parties back in the day? That Nintendo third parties were biased towards Nintendo and didn't want to work with Nintendo because of a bias? People, read the article, read the excerpts, accept reality. Nintendo is not a good company to do business with. They expect people to roll over and do as they want. They do not want to go out and they do not want to pursue things. They feel as though they are entitled to everything. So this whole myth about a Nintendo GameCube bias, blown up, exposed. It's over.